Oh, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a good holiday weekend and you're all back and ready to go. So, got a good call today, I think. So we'll go ahead and get started. So, oops, let me get my question box going here so I can see if anybody is saying anything to me. Okay, there we go. So first thing I want to talk about is something, if you've listened to my bond script and how you deal with bonds, we talk about the fact that the guys wearing the $700 shoes are who guys? Who's wearing the $700 shoes in New York? See if anybody remembers the script here. Got a little hint on the screen here. The bond brokers, right, Bert? Yep, the bond salespeople. And this validates why. So this is out of the Financial Advisor magazine saying 226 one day in April, an investor bought $30,000 bonds issued to finance a new stadium in New York Mets at $1.06 $1.06 on the dollar. 6 minutes earlier, broker paid $1.01 for the same securities. Chances are the buyers of one individual investors who dominate the $3.7 trillion municipal market. He or she was unaware of the $1,500 markup. Guys, with today's interest rates, how long is it going to take that bondholder to get back to ground even? Yeah, exactly. Forever. That's right, Michael. So, and here's the thing. They've been trying, it says here, proposal by Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, which is soliciting comments on it through December 11th, follows a push to the SEC to inject more transparency in the market. How many times have they tried to get? I mean, it's the only security. What is the only security that we don't have to report commissions on? Yeah, and they've tried to get it through, but the bond lobbying force is huge. So it says down here, by requiring brokers to disclose how much they earn, regulators want to foster more competitive pricing among dealers and drive down trading costs. Study of the Securities Litigation Consulting Group, a firm that advises on lawsuits, estimated that a customer's paid more than $10 billion in excessive markups and markdowns on municipal bonds between 2005 and 2013. That's mostly borne by small investors who bought those who bought $100,000 or less of an investment-grade muni bond paid brokers an average transaction cost of 1.73%, twice that of corporate bonds, according to the report of Standard & Poor's. So chances are if the buyer was, this is actually a repeat here. So the municipal, the MSRB, I forget, it's municipal something or other, Securities Review Board or Regulatory Board, is currently drafted, would require dealers to disclose the market and markdown for principal, blah, 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 blah. But essentially, I just wanted you to see this. So, guys, when we say that individual bondholders are being screwed, guess what? Am I just saying that for a script, or is that actually happening? I got one answer. I want to see more answers than that. So, guys, any investor who's spending less than $100,000 on bonds is what? And I'll tell you what, when I worked at the bank and I sold bonds, I made 6-7% on 5-year bonds. Why? Because they're getting killed in the spread, right, Michael? I was getting 6 or 7%. I was getting paid more on selling a bond than I was getting paid to sell a mutual fund, an A-share mutual fund, because of the spread. So anybody, can this be used as a meeting? I guess I would think that I would use this. It's a industry journal for brokers. Yeah, I would absolutely show somebody this if you have to. But again, here's what you have to understand. I would have this proof sitting over here on the side. Would I whip out the proof? When we're at a meeting, how much proof do I use at a meeting? Well, I try not to use it. I guess Morningstar is proof. So if you are going to use it, John, what I'd want to do is get them to validate that Financial Advisor magazine, the magazine it came from, is a what? If I'm going to use this before the bonds, I want to get the client to admit what? It's a third party, and third parties are what, Jim? Yep. So if I'm going to use it, they have to tell me it's a reliable source before I tell them what the proof is. Exactly. So if I'm ever going to use a third party, they have to tell me the third party is reliable before I use it to prove anything. Does that make sense to you guys? And also, the only reason I'm okay with using this is by the time you get to this point, where should the client be? By the time you get to the financial part where you're actually going through bonds or their mutual funds or their stocks, where should the client be? What's POD, John? Help me. Boiling over, I would absolutely say that. Boiling over. Irritate, yep. Yes, I would agree with that, John. So, PO'd, I get it, got it. It takes me a while. We had a long weekend. So, yeah, by the time you get here, they've already decided they don't like their broker. So, yeah, it's going to be likely they're going to agree with anything that you show them at this point. But yeah, so that was a long answer to your question there, John. So I would use it, make sure they'll validate that this third party is valid before you actually show it to them. Make sense, everybody? Any questions on that? And I think, so you see here, it's from Financial Advisor Magazine, November 23rd, 2015, Bloomberg News. And then there's a link down here, and if you contact Tricia, she's really good about getting you that link if you want to use that. You've heard me talk about...
I'll just post that with the call as well. Yep, I'll post the support.
Super.
Yep.
Thank you. Now, you've heard me talk about the Shiller CAPE, which is the 10-year average of price-earnings ratios. And this has been proven valid over and over and over and over. But this is the first time I saw it actually laid out in a table format. So this is looking at all the bear markets since 1873. And the times that the Shiller CAPE ratio, which is, again, the average price-earnings ratio for the previous 10 years, the 3 times that it got extremely high, so you got 32.56 back in 1929, and they said after that peak of 32.56 for the CAPE ratio, the market went down 86.1%. Didn't reach those levels again until the 2000 bubble. And it got up to 43, which is way higher than that. But this is a good lesson here. So, guys, just because it got up to the 1929 stock market crash, it got up to 32.56. It got up to 43.53 in 2000, which means for a couple of years, or at least 1 year or 2 years, guess what? The CAPE ratio is high, and what happened? Kept going up, right, Bobby? It kept going up and up and up and up. So you never know when it's going to turn. You just know that the higher it goes, the more what? The higher it goes, the more danger it is, and it's going to turn. So you can see then in the 2007 crash, it got up to 27, and we're at the 4th highest of 26.83. So the likelihood is, what are we looking at with these downturns of the bear market? The higher it is, yikes is right, Rick. So this is something that, again, we don't know when it's going to turn. We do not know when it's going to turn. We just know what? Eventually, this PE has to get back to what? I mean, that's the way the market works. It's just like it's the way rental properties work. What happens with rental properties? Rents get too many people build rental properties, and then what happens to rental costs? When too many people build, they fall down. And then what happens is people quit building rental properties, and then they become scarce, and what happens? They go back up, and then people start buying again, boom, boom. And that's how the economy works. That's how the market works. So when the PE gets too high, what happens? We eventually have to what? Correct. Boom and bust, boom and bust. That's right. And that's the way it works. So right now, again, the market go up another 2 years for all we know. But when it goes, it's going to what, guys? Go down a little bit? You think the little 8-9% correction we've had is all we're going to see? No, it's going to go down a lot worse than that. And we just, again, not knowing when that's going to happen, that's why we go 50-50. Make sense? Okay, so here's our main topic for today. Dude, you talk funny. What language are you from? Because I want to talk about why our scripts are the way they are. Why I have you talk the way I talk. Because the biggest comment that people give me when they come on board is what? What do you think the biggest comment that people make to me when they come on board and they're looking at the scripts and they're checking out with us? What do you think the biggest comment is? Not their style, not the natural way of talking. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like, this is way different from how I normally communicate. This is way different from how I normally communicate, and I get that. It is way different. But I want to go through today why we need to do that, okay? There was a study done in 2015, this year, 54-page study sought to understand what impact technology in today's digital lives are having on attention spans. Researchers collected data from surveys from more than 2,000 Canadians over the age of 18. And what they found out was at the very bottom here, the findings revealed human attention span has fallen from an average of 12 seconds in the year 2000 to 8 seconds today. So what kind of drop is that, guys? The average attention span was 12 seconds in the year 2000, just 8 seconds today. That's huge. And everybody, and if you think that I'm crazy here, go with the internet. It's all over the place. This is Bloomberg that's reporting this. The average attention span in 2013 was 8 seconds versus 2000, and it was 12 seconds. The average memory of a goldfish is 9 seconds. And I will tell you straight out, guys, here's proof of this. I've told you the guys that have come on here in the last 6 months or so that when people, I've been teaching or coaching guys since 2000. And from 2000 to 2007, when people came on, I required them to memorize. And Jeff, I need you to get on the call here a second. I required them to memorize the 21-point checklist from front to back. Also, a whole full hour for the agreement meeting. And it was a difficult agreement meeting. So that was an hour agreement meeting, first meeting, and an hour and a half of the second meeting, or the disclosure meeting, or the 21-point checklist meeting. That's 2.5 hours. And Jeff, how many people did that from 2000 to 2007?
Yeah, all of them did it.
All of them did it. All of them did it. And now I have guys come on, and some of you are really good about just memorizing the big three. But why do you think I went down to just the big three, guys? Why do you think I went down to the big three? Yeah, they're the most important. I would agree with that. But guys, do you think learning the big three or learning all 21 is going to make you more money? All 21. The reason I went down to the big three is guess how many people I found could do the 21? Even, Jeff, even average people, could they do all 21? 2007.
Yeah, absolutely. They could do it. Everybody did it, yeah.
Yeah, everybody did it. And those average people, what happened to their income?
Yeah, it went up.
Boom. But I found between 2000 and 2010, which I agree with this study here, the advent of smartphones, guess what happened to people's ability to memorize all 21-point checklists? Went down. So I didn't go down to the big three because I thought, hey, this is a good idea. Let's go down to the big three. I went down to the big three because nobody could do the 21. So we've gone down to the big three because of this. Now here's the point. It's still working great. Guys that learn the big three and then go back and learn the other 18, they're doing great. And I think it's been a good change because guys are getting up and running a lot faster than they used to, and they still are using the power of it, and it's still working really well for people. But here's what I want you to understand. I mean, that's happened with you. If it's happened with you, guess who else it's happened with? It's happened with you. Guess who else it's happened with? Everybody, clients. So here's another study from the Nightly News. Average attention span 2000 was 12 seconds, 8 seconds. That's the study we just looked at. Attention span at the office, 43% of people abandon lengthy emails in the first 30 seconds. Missy, can you get on the phone a second?
I sure can.
Would you disagree or agree with this with the emails we send to the guys?
For sure. It's there's no attention span.
And I don't either. I am as guilty as anybody. I zip through the emails instead of reading them. And I'll send you detailed emails, and then I'll get a phone call saying, I don't get this, and then we go back and look at the email, and guess what we find, guys? It's right there in the email. You're exactly right, Michael. Michael's jumping ahead here, getting to my point. You must grab a prospect's attention right off the bat, and then what, Michael? You grab it off the bat, and then what, Michael? Keep it, exactly. Keep them. And then they look at 32% tune out long-winded coworkers after 15 seconds. Would this apply to us and the people we're meeting with, guys? I got one yes. I need a lot more than one yes. Got two. Come on, guys. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So here's the shift in microcommunications. 20 minutes is the average adult's attention span. So I don't care what you're talking to. I mean, they've got different studies here. This one's saying 20 minutes, but still it's down significantly. The average presentation is 25% less slides than 3 years ago. The average keynote is half the length it was 5 years ago. Business leaders grow impatient with email is over 3 paragraphs. A microblog, I mean, look at Twitter. We're now talking in what? It's got even worse, guys. What did the Webster? I think it's the Webster, the Oxford Dictionary. What was the word of the year? What was the word of the year? A friggin' emoji. What do they call those things? I don't even use the stupid things. A laughing smiley face with a tear coming down his face. It wasn't even a word. The word of the year wasn't even a word. We couldn't even take the time to write LOL or whatever. It was an emoticon. That's what's happening to people's attentions. So why do you think that we have to talk the way we did? And guys, I did this before this whole the attention span has been shortening, for 2 decades. For 2 decades, but I've been talking this way for 17 years when I first developed the 5Q system. But it's gotten even more important to talk the way that we talk. Because if I don't know what's going on in their brains, there's a high likelihood they're what? If I don't know what's going on in their brains, it's a high likelihood they've what? They're wandering, right, Bert? They're tuned out, Kevin, exactly. So the great thing about our system is we can read people's minds. How can we read people's minds? How can we read people's minds? The great part, the power of this system is that we can read people's minds. That's right. They tell us. We ask questions, and then they tell us what's on their mind. That's the great thing about this system is we always know what's on their mind. So why do I never go more than 30 seconds, usually 15 seconds, but no more than 30 seconds without asking a question? What's the longest they can disengage with me? What is the longest they can disengage with me? 30 seconds. 15 seconds if I go 15, right? So that's why any point worth making must be made by who? Any point worth making must be made by them. Exactly right. And guys, write this on your bathroom mirror. Write this on your rear view mirror. Write this on your forehead. When you learn this, guess what happens to your sales? They go through the roof. Because guess what? In an hour, what do I spend an hour and a half having the client do at a 21 meeting? What do I spend an hour and a half? And if you multiply 15 or 30 seconds, them giving me an answer every 15 or 30 seconds, how many times have they told me, sometimes in very teeny ways, and sometimes in very clear, blunt ways, that they do not like their guy, that they do not trust their guy? How many times? Dozens. No. Do the math, guys. An hour and a half. Minimum, how many times? Hundreds, exactly, Jim. And I've had a guy actually count it. There's 400. I asked 400 questions in that hour and a half 21-point checklist meeting. I asked 400. You guys may be a good advisor or maybe ask 200. So 400 questions. And do people get mad at me? No, why don't they get mad at me? We turn it conversational by doing what? Using GOTS. Constantly giving them those little pats on the back. And the other thing is, guys, do they get mad at me when they get done with that meeting? Do they feel like they've actually know a lot more than when they walked in? So they're happy with me. They are happy with me. The trick is, how often do I ask a question where the client doesn't get it right? Not very often, because I've gotten so good at asking questions where I've actually given them the answer in the question. So that the trick is, when I ask them 400 questions, that means they've gotten how many things right in an hour and a half? 400. So that means they are what with themselves? Proud of themselves. They think, this is awesome. I'm a smart guy. And I love it when they think they're smart, when they think their guy is what? Terrible. Not to be trusted. A lying, cheating thief. At a third meeting, an implementation meeting, those of you guys that have memorized or gotten pretty darn close to memorizing the presentations, whether it's the 50% participation rate or the no cap or the one-way presentation, how many times in an hour do they tell me that they want to buy what I have? I don't sell anything. They tell me over and over and over they want to buy over 100 times, very exactly, over and over and over. See, so many advisors think they're excellent communicators, but their clients feel lost, overwhelmed, and confused. But here's why. Why do you think advisors think they're excellent communicators? Why do you think? Why do you think advisors think they're excellent communicators? They're telling, selling, they're teaching. Yep, you're all right. They do tell, sell, preach, teach, but here's the reason why you're fooled. Well, let me ask you a question then. Why do you think, there we got it, Jim's got it, because this is what your client looks like. This is what your client looks like. See if anybody gets this. What's this picture of who? What commercial is this a picture of? See if anybody gets this. They've actually taken it off TV. Well, not Viagra is close. It's Extends. So here's the guy. He's at work, and guess what he's thinking about? Is he thinking about work, or what's he thinking about? Certainly not thinking about work. But when we're communicating to the client, and they're looking at us and they're smiling, we think what? When they're saying when they're saying right, when they're saying exactly, when they're agreeing with it, we're thinking what? That we are communicating fantastically. No, they don't have a clue what you're saying. They're either confused, bored, wandering, but they smile. Why do they smile? They don't want to look like that's right, Michael. So they don't want to look like that they don't get it. They don't want to be rude. They don't want to disagree with you. So they're just going to smile. They don't want to look stupid. Exactly, Kevin. So that's right, Michael. They just want to be polite. So we think we're great communicators because they're saying and then at the end, after saying for a whole hour and a half or whatever, saying what do they say at the end? What are the 5 words? The 5 words of death. Let me think about it. Right, Terry? Let me think about it. See, you have the curse of knowledge. You have the curse of knowledge, which is how can educated, well-paid people talk so much rubbish? Here's why. The curse of knowledge is once we know something, it's hard to imagine what it's like not to know it. Do you get that? See, because you guys think these things are easy. The whole thing about bonds, being charged more as an individual investor than the regular folks, that's common knowledge to you now. But how many clients know that? How bonds work? You know that. How many clients know that? How annuities work? You know that, but how many clients know that? And we think that what? It's simple. How can they not get this? Hey guys, I went for 8 years with the curse of knowledge because I was a genius. And I proved to these people back and forth how they were being ripped off and their advisor would take advantage of them. And I proved it, man. I nailed them. And then I would scratch my head and think, well, why won't they move the money? Well, who did it? When I was making $50,000 a year, who did all the talking for an hour and a half? I did. So yeah, I mean, in my mind, it was obvious that they should leave. In my mind, it was obvious they should leave. Whose mind wasn't it obvious they should leave? See, it's hard to imagine how they couldn't see what I was seeing. Do you get that? I couldn't understand why they wouldn't move their money because I was explaining it. It was just plain as day to me, but who wasn't it plain as day to? Them, because I never actually asked them a question. Not an open-ended one, anyways. And we used to do this with our advanced sales training classes. Was that we would actually this is a great lesson. We would have maybe 30 people in the class, and I'd go and I'd have one of them tap "Happy Birthday" out on the desk. So just tapping it out on the desk. I can't make it because I can't make the sound, but they would tap it out on the desk, and then I would ask everybody who knows what song this was. and virtually nobody in the room would know what the song is. So then I said, dude, you're not tapping well enough. So they would tap it again, and the tapper would get frustrated as heck because in his head, how plain was Happy Birthday? In his head, how plain, and he's like, how can these idiots in the room not get this? And what they found is when they did this with 120 songs tapped, guess how many people guessed the songs? 3 songs were guessed. 3 songs were guessed. But in the guy's head, it was what? Plain as day. Do you get that? So all the things that we're trying to communicate to clients, it's clear to us. So when you're checking out of the big 3 and when you're learning the other 18, but let's go back. When you're checking out of the big 3, why did Jeff and I make sure you're asking following the script and asking these open-ended questions? Because it's the only way we know you're going to make sure that it's clear to the client. Because when you ask an open-ended question, they actually have to give you a clear thought back. They have to connect the dots themselves, and that's how you know what they're thinking. Do you get that? So, but here's how we do. We say, explain it slowly. Nope, that doesn't work. Explain it again. No, you can explain it as many times as you want. Guess what? If they're not getting it, they're what? Explain it as many times as you want. If they're not getting it, they're not what? Because the second time you try to explain it, what goes on in their brains? They feel dumb, they check out, they get frustrated. Exactly. Step 3, use familiar examples and remain patient. Nope. Use repetition, humor, and visual aids. Nope. Because guys, we'll look at the client and the lights are on, but nobody's home. They say yes, they smile, but they're not getting it. They're not getting it. But we get fooled because they nod and they smile. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So when somebody tells me I couldn't ask questions because the people just weren't getting it, what's that guy missing? I couldn't ask questions because, I could ask questions till kingdom come, but these people were not smart enough. They weren't getting it. What's this guy missing? Not GOTS. What's he missing? Not simple enough. What do you mean by that, Michael? What could he have done to make it simpler? So you're right, Michael. You got it, Jim. Ask questions in smaller steps. Ask smaller questions. Ask questions where all the answers are in there. Let's see if anybody gets this. What is the simplest question you can ask somebody open-ended wise? An either or. Ask an either or and make one of the answers what? Ask an either or questions and make one of them easy and one of them weird. Exactly, Roy. One of them clearly wrong. Right, Michael? So I make it ridiculously wrong so they know exactly what the answer is. But it's weird. They'll still be proud of themselves for getting the answer right, even if it's obvious what that answer is. So if somebody says the client's not getting it, guess what? No. Because if you had a child that was challenged, maybe they just are not getting math. They're a bright child, but they're just not getting math. And the teacher says, well, your kid's just not getting it. What would you tell that teacher? Well, your kid's not that bright in math. You know what? Some people have it, some people don't. Your kid's not bright in math. So what am I supposed to do? I can't teach somebody. What would you tell that teacher? What would you tell him? Change your style, yeah. Not bring it down to, not doing your job. That's what I would say, Jeannie. You're a poor teacher, Rick. I'd say you're a poor teacher. You know what? Because good teachers, they thrive on taking somebody who's struggling in what? Good teachers thrive on taking somebody who's studying and having them get the concept. So don't ever tell Jeff or don't ever tell me I couldn't ask questions because these people weren't smart enough. You know who wasn't smart enough? Yeah, us. That's right, Jim. Because you know what? You put those people in front of Jeff or me or a guy that knows the 5Q system, are we going to help somebody who's not very smart get it? Yeah, because we're going to ask very small questions that are easy to answer. So I have to ask 15 questions. But here's the funny thing. If they're not smart enough to get it, how is telling, selling, preaching, teaching going to help? If they're not smart enough to get the questions we're answering, are they going to get it when we're telling, selling, preaching, and teaching? Not even close. So this is the way you got to communicate. See, otherwise, if they're disconnected, if we're not asking questions, if we don't know what's going on in their brain, they're going to get confused. They're going to get frustrated. Guys, can you go think back to a class that you didn't get, whether it was chemistry, physics, math, something that you just didn't get? How did you feel when you left that class? You listened to the lecture, and you didn't get a single thing that that teacher was saying. What did you feel like? Overwhelmed, stupid, frustrated. Yeah, that's how I felt. Exactly. And we don't want our clients to feel that way, because if they feel that way, guess what? You don't get the sale. So instead, we need to take this garbly-gook, because that's what they hear. We get this. See, the curse of knowledge is we're over here on the right. All this stuff that we teach makes total sense to us. But guess where the client starts? On the right or the left? On the left. Our job is to unwind that tangled mess and have it all click with them in a very easy to understand manner. Does that make sense? So all truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. And I actually added a little 2 words to this. So what do you think I'm going to add? All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. What do you think I added to this? Who must discover them? The clients. So all truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is for your client to discover them. So the secret to success is changing how we communicate. The human mind is a processor, not a logic processor. So is a story processor, not a logic processor. So the most powerful tool we have when we're communicating something and asking questions and having people understand things is what? A story. Because our brains are designed for that. Now here's where some guys will get twisted around. An anecdote, is that a story? No. It's just something that happened to you. It's a snapshot in time. It is weak. Say, oh yeah, because you're like, oh yeah, well, listen what happened to me once. Well, if it happened to you once, does that have any validity? Instead, the story becomes about what? About a point or about you? So why do you think, here's the funny thing. When I'm telling a story, do you think most of the stories I tell actually happened to me or didn't happen to me? Most of the stories I tell, you guys are smart, didn't happen to me. Why do the stories that I tell not happen to me? Because if I tell a story that actually happened to me, guess what I drift into? Yeah, because they lose interest, you're right. It's about me, not about the point. So even though I'll say, hey, this happened to me once, it didn't really happen to me. It's a teaching story. Teaching stories shouldn't be about you. And every time I've heard a guy start to tell a story that happened to him, instead of the story we have in the scripts, guess what happens? It gets really detailed, and they're talking about all sorts of things that have nothing to do with our point. And you're right, the clients lose interest. So it's not an anecdote. A story is this. A story uses data. There's data in there. There's information in there. And there's a sense of magnitude. What do I mean by a sense of magnitude, guys? Little things happen or big things happen. Little consequences, big consequences. Big consequences. And the story fits with a wider scheme of things. This is how life works. It didn't just happen to me. It's how what? See, I get there, when we're telling the story, I get the client to tell me what? That this is the way life works for just this, like Brer Rabbit, or this is how life works for everybody. Sure, it happened to Brer Rabbit, but it also happened to who? Everybody. See, the story fits with a wider scheme of things. It has to do that. Otherwise, it's just an anecdote. There has to be a passage of time that this point holds up, not just for one moment in time, But for how long? How often? Always and what? Forever. Do you get that? And it lays out a daisy chain of events that causes the... So think about this. So go back to the power of attorney script and the story we tell about me being hit by a bus, I'm in the hospital. Does it use data? Does it use data? The story about me being in the hospital. My wife walks in. Yes, it does use data. What am I saying? She walks in and what's happening? I'm hit by a bus. Is that data? I'm in the hospital and there's machines hooked up to me and wires hooked up to me and they're beeping and blooping. Is that data, guys? Yes, that is data. I ask, so how is she feeling? Is that data? Do the bills still keep rolling in? Is that data? See, it's data, data, data. Now, is there a sense of magnitude to that story? Does it fit with a wider scheme of things? Would most wives be alarmed or freaked out if their husband walked into an ICU and that happened? Is there a passage of time with she first arrives when I'm in the hospital, and then time goes on and the bills still come in and her life gets worse or better, then we run out of money. Do you see? Is there a passage of time occurring? And then is there a daisy chain of events from me being hit by the bus to me being in the hospital a period of time with the funds dwindling, with my wife calling up to see if she can get money, with them saying no, with her having to, do you see, is there a time event? So is that story utilizing all the things necessary in a story? Right, Kevin, it gets progressively worse. And can I show you how powerful a story is? In the Bible, can we make a point that the Ten Commandments is some of the most important data in the Bible? Do you think that's an off base point, or is that some of the most important data that's in the Bible, the Ten Commandments? I got one no question. I guess I must be out to lunch here. Got two. Okay. So here's the thing. When people were asked to name the Ten Commandments, what percentage of Americans could name the Ten Commandments? Who said 15? That was darn close. Bert. 14% of Americans could list all 10 commandments. Guys, that's some of the most important data in the Bible, and only 14% of Americans could name them. But you know what? In the same survey, 25% could name all 7 ingredients of a Big Mac. So 14%, I mean, there are a lot of people in this country that say the Bible is the most important book that we have. So in the most important book we have, the most important data that we have, which is only 10 points, only 14% of people could name that data. 25% could name all 7 ingredients to a Big Mac. Why? Wasn't even repetitive advertising. Why did this work? Kind of a story form. It was put to what? Song. It was put to song. So things are easier. I guarantee you, if they put the 10 Commandments to a catchy tune, you'd be able to remember the 10 Commandments. Unfortunately, the data that we're trying to communicate to people in financial, can we put all that data into catchy tunes? No, we can't. I mean, another example of that, though, 35% could name all 6 kids of the Brady Bunch. Why? Why? Well, it wasn't, I guess I don't remember them from the song. Why do I remember them? Do they name all the kids in the song? I don't even know if they do. Do they? I didn't think they did. So the reason I know them is what? Because it's a what? Story. It's a story. So few people can remember some of the most important data in the Bible. But you know what? How many people know the story of Jonah and the whale? How many people know the Easter story, the miracle of Jesus story, the birth of Moses story, the Technicolor The Joseph story, the baptism of Jesus. I mean, how many people know those stories? A high percentage. So here's the thing. Those stories have a lot more information or less information than the Ten Commandments. How a lot more. Heck, if you watch the Ten Commandments movie, how much stuff is going on in that movie? Tons. Plagues and birds. So why did we remember? Why could we remember them? Because our brains are what? They're structured to learn through stories. How long has information been passed along versus via data? Not very long. How long in the human history has information been passed along via story? Since when? Forever, exactly. Since forever. See, the great thing about the stories is this. A great story puts the listener into what? A great story puts the listener into what? Not listening mode. Active engagement, Bobby. You're right. See, here's the thing. Have you ever watched a movie and say, oh, that was idiot? You know, you watch those the movies where the bad guy's chasing the good guy, and then the good guy knocks the guy down and the gun falls away, and then does the good guy pick up the gun, or does he continue to run away so the bad guy can pick up the gun and continue to chase him? And what are you saying? When the good guy knocks the bad guy down and the gun slides away, what are you saying to that guy? Dude, what should he do? Get the gun. And then when he runs away, we're like, what do we say? You idiot. So what's happening in that story? I'm involved. I'm engaged. I'm in his shoes. I'm saying, oh, that he should have done that. That's not what I would have done this. See, if they're saying those things, is that a good story or a bad story? Do you get the difference? If it's an anecdote and you're talking about yourself, they're saying, yeah, See, anecdotes don't work, but stories work because they get involved. When I'm walking them through the story for the power of attorney, where I'm in the ICU and my wife's going through that, I'm doing my darndest to make sure they feel what? My wife's what? Pain. Does that make sense? So stories are the most powerful way to communicate. But am I telling the stories, or am I making the client tell me the story? I'm setting the table, but then the client's what? Because if I just tell them a story, I don't care how engaging it is, they can still drift. Remember how long their attention span is? So even when I'm telling a story, how long before I ask a question? Yeah, 15 seconds. Now the second way we can communicate is a feature is what something is. A benefit is what something does. Which one should we be talking about, features or benefits? As they say, people going to the hardware store, are they looking for a drill? What are they looking for? A hole, exactly. They don't want the drill, they want a hole. Just like the iPod. Do I want some mechanical thing that has earphones and a dial-y thing? No, what do I want? I want music. So, here, this is a great advertisement. iPod is 1,000 songs in your pocket. I can take 1,000 songs along with me wherever I go. That's what an iPod is. Not, hey, it's got earphones and it's got this and it's got that, and look at it's got easy to track menu. Guys, those are features. What I want is what? Music anywhere, right? The third way to communicate is with visuals. So I don't care how much I say this is an ugly woman, what's overriding what I'm saying? Is there any way I could, so when they say a picture paints 1,000 words, that means what? Is that true or not true? Now here's the thing, we don't use a lot of visuals. We use some visuals, but we don't use a lot of them. But there is a way to create a visual without a picture, which is what? You hear me talk about this every once in a while. What should the story have in it? Technicolor. When I say Technicolor, what am I talking about doing? When I'm talking about Technicolor, when my wife walks in there and she sees me hooked up to all these machines. There's wires hooked up to my arms, and they got things taped to my head, and the machines are beeping and blurping. What am I doing there, guys? I'm trying to paint a picture. Whether that's I'm doing it well or not, I don't know, but that's what I am trying to do. Does that make a sense? So that's why we're using stories with visuals in the stories. The more technicolor I can make it, the better. When I'm telling a story. The other thing we use is metaphors. So we use metaphors because I want them to understand that what we're teaching is not just a true to them, it's true to who? Not just true to them, it's true to everyone. And unfortunately, when we try to tell somebody it's true to you, what do people want to do? Hey, this is, you know what? This is going to happen to you. This is going to happen. This is what's going to happen to you. These are the problems that you're going to have. When I do that, what do? Yeah, they deny it. They reject it. So metaphor allows us to have them say, yeah, this is the way life works all the time. And then we can take a step back and say, well, isn't that what's happening right here? Guys, your home runs with parenting, your home runs, if you think back with parenting, is when you get your child to admit what? That there's a universal truth. They don't realize that you're about to say, well, that's a situation you're in right now. Our home run with parenting is when we get a client, our child to admit that there's a universal truth, and then we have them take a step back and say, holy cow, that's what's happening to me. And it's the same thing with our clients. That's why we use metaphors a lot in our scripts, because it has somebody, it's not a direct attack. Instead, it's an agreement that this is the way that life works, and when they can agree that this way life works, it's much easier to get them to say, yes, and it also works that way for who? Me. And so, if we want them to get them to agree that it works that way for me, so I'm going to get them to agree that it works that way for everyone before I bring it back to me. The other thing that we do with metaphors is this. I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but Ridley Scott was pitching Aliens to the movie theaters. Anybody know this story? He was pitching Aliens to the movie producers or to the movie industry, and he sold it with one sentence. Does anybody know what that sentence is? So he was selling the movie Aliens to the producers in the movie industry. What's the sentence that he used? Nobody knows it? Somebody got it. Well, close. Said it's Jaws in space. And as soon as he says it's Jaws in space, how quickly do people get it? How quickly? Did they get they might not know the details of the story, but did they get the story? Oh, something big and ugly and dangerous so they get it immediately. So the other thing that metaphors can do is communicate a concept, a complicated concept, very, very what? Rapidly, because it takes something they're familiar with, and boils it down to a complicated situation into something very simple. So why do you think I use travel for metaphors, and medicine for metaphors, and cars for metaphors? Why do I use those for metaphors? Everybody has driven a car. Everybody has traveled. That's right. Everybody has gone to the doctor. Why don't I use golf? Why don't I use golf? Why don't I use sports? Yeah, not everybody golfs or plays sports. But so metaphors I try to make it something that is going to be relatable to who? Everybody. And when it's relatable to everybody, I can teach a lesson very, very rapidly, because we've all driven a car, we've all been to the doctor, we've all traveled. Does that make sense? So, and it kind of relates to this. It sounds familiar. New information is much stickier when it's tied to information they already know. So the reason I use things that everybody actually is familiar with is because it sticks with them. It sticks with them. The other thing is we keep it simple. Keep it simple. See, There is no one giant step that does it. It's lots of little steps. So how do we make a complicated concept simple? How do we make it complicated? Break it down into, that's right, Michael. Break it down, chip away at it, Bert. Break it into many little steps. And when we do that, I mean, how did we learn calculus? Those of you who learn calculus, did you just start out with calculus in 3rd grade? Or how many years of little things did it take to build up to the point where you could understand calculus? Trigonometry. How many years? Years of tiny little lessons to get you to that point. So do you get that the concept, I know the concepts that we're teaching the clients are simple to you. I hope they are. You've been in the industry for how many years? But you're taking things that are simple to you because you've been in the industry for years, and you're talking about it to somebody. I don't care if he's the most brilliant attorney in the world, the most brilliant engineer in the world. Is it the same thing? Are we teaching the same thing that the attorney or the engineer is used to dealing with? No. So it's going to take what? Time and what, more importantly? Lots of simple questions, Kevin. Lots of simple questions. Now, here's the thing. People will say, well, won't they get sick of you asking questions? It's impossible. When you do this right, it's impossible to ask too many questions. Let's see if somebody can get the answer to why this is the case. If you're doing this right, it's impossible to ask too many questions. Why do I say that? GOTS, I would agree with that, GOTS, but why else? They like being right. You're right. All you guys are right on this. Well, you're all right. Here's the question. Here's the answer I was looking for. If I'm asking questions and they immediately get it, what do I do? See, if I'm doing the power of attorney, and I say, do you know the importance of the power of attorney? He goes, yeah, let me tell you the importance of the power of attorney. If you don't have the power of attorney, so I asked the first question, what's the importance of power of attorney? I say, well, let me tell you. Here's the problem. My mother-in-law, we had a power of attorney. She ran out of money. We needed to go to get the money, and the dang bank, the dang broker, you know what? They wouldn't give us the money. Now, if that was the problem, they should have told us before, not after. Those SOBs should have been looking at that power of attorney well beforehand, not tell us at the end. They just wanted to keep my mother-in-law's money. That's, you know what, those SOBs? If they say that, guess what? How many more questions do I need to ask? 0. So if they're smart, guess how many questions you ask? More or less? Less. If they're not getting it, then we have to ask them more. And if we have to ask them more, do you think they get irritated, or are they happy that we're spending the time and have the patience to have them learn something? They're happy. So when you do this right, you're never going to ask too many questions, because when you're asking questions, you're listening to their answers. If they get it, then aha, they get it. If they don't get it, aha, I need to do more. Make sense? See, we need to take an unfamiliar concept and we need to break it into multiple pieces. The 7th thing is, throughout history, great leaders have known the power of humor. So, geez, I think about 6-8 months ago we were listening to Bob's, some of Bob's 21-point checklist, and his go 3 hours long. When he does it right, they go 3 hours long. And I don't know if you remember those tapes, but guess how much laughing was going on in those 3 hours? Tons of laughing. Tons of laughing. And if you ever listen to one of my meetings, there was always laughter. Because if you get somebody laughing, they trust you. They trust you. Because if you don't trust somebody, guess what you will not do? If you do not trust somebody, guess what you will not do? You will not laugh at anything they say. It's weird, but they won't laugh at anything. So use humor when you can, especially when it's whose humor. Especially when it's whose humor. Theirs. When they make a joke and they laugh, what had you better do? Acknowledge, at least acknowledge it, and laugh if you can, okay? So I don't think it's healthy to take yourself too seriously, Peyton Stewart. Dudes, here's the one reason that, first of all, a lot of guys will do it early on in the system because they don't know the script, so they're more worried about what they're going to say next than they are to listen to what the client says they're more worried about what they're going to say next than it is to laugh at the client's jokes. I get that, but also what I find after people learn the scripts is they don't want to look unprofessional. Guys, are they going to buy from you because you look professional, or are they going to buy from you because they trust you? Trust. And do they trust professionals, or do they trust human beings that they communicate well with? Yeah, humans. So it's not about how bad you want it. It's about how hard you're willing to work for it. So when somebody tells me this is hard, what do I think that is? When somebody tells me this is hard, what does Mike think that is? Rubbish. Exactly. Because here's the thing. You don't even need to learn how to, you know what, first of all, if you want to learn how to ask questions, terrific. But you don't even, a lot of guys say, well, it's just hard to ask questions the way you do. It's hard to do that. Okay, I get it. It's hard to learn to ask questions the way I do. So therefore, guess what I've provided to you? Scripts. So guess what you do not need to learn? How to come up with your own questions. Just learn the scripts. Mark makes a great point. If it's hard, less people are going to compete with you. Yeah, how many of your competitors know how to do this? None. None. So, guys, some of you are newer and have heard this, but I've made this. I'll ask this question because I like asking about every 6 months. If I took a fireman, how much does a fireman know about marketing, about selling, about finances? Nothing. And I said, listen, I'm going to pay you $250,000 to learn the 21-point checklist script in the next 2 weeks. Would he know that better at the end of 2 weeks or worse than you? So is there any excuse for you not to learn this? Because how much money, if you believe in this stuff, how much money are you going to make with it? I went from making $50,000 a year to making $1 million a year. So how does that compare to $250,000 one time as compared to making $1 million a year from now for the rest of your career? If you what? Because if you learn it, Jeff, can you get on a second? Are you still on?
Yeah, I'm on.
If you learn it as well as you or I, how much money are you going to make?
Oh, you can make as much as you want to make. The only limit to how much you can make is how many people you see.
And how many people are you going to see when you know it this well?
You're going to see as many as you possibly can. There's no reason not to get in front of people. Hey, before you wind up, one thing that strikes me is, and I think this really kind of encapsulates everything, is, there's a Teacher of the Year award. I think every state has it. So Minnesota at some point is going to name the Teacher of the Year for 2015, and California is going to do the same. Well, they did a study one time, and they wanted to know, well, what makes these teachers such great teachers? So they looked back at all the teachers of the year, and what they found out is they all have something in common. When they teach, their teaching follows the pattern or the structure of a mystery story. So if you're reading a mystery novel or watching a mystery movie, they found out that these teachers of the year, they all teach in that pattern or in that structure. And the reason it turns out to be so effective is, number one, hey, it's a story. And we all learn by story. Two, mystery stories make you be involved. They make you put yourself in the place of the person who's trying to solve the mystery. And three, you're having to take little steps. You can't just say, oh, here's the person who did it. We have to follow these little incremental clues. And so they do everything we're talking about. They tell stories. They tell a story that requires you to be involved, and they take little steps. And believe me, these teachers aren't worried about looking professional. They're not saying, hey, I'm more like a mystery novelist than I am like a teacher. It works.
And guys, we've given you the tools to do that. Until you can come up with your own stories, just become a master at the script. I tell you straight out, if I was coming onto the system, what do you think I would spend 2 weeks doing, a month doing? Guess how long I would do it until I could do it? And some of you know my personality, some of you don't. But those of you who know my personality, what would I do? Would I worry about making money on Friday? Would I worry about anything, or what would I do? I would live, I would breathe, I would eat what? Until I knew what? Backwards and forwards. So guys, we're going into December. It's not a real busy month for the most part. On December 31st, what should your goal be? On December 31st, what should your goal be? No, all 21. Yeah, each one of these, somebody asks, is there a script? Yeah. If you go to the disclosure meeting on the website, each one of these topics has a script, a written script, yes. Okay. So guys, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 89 people said they're going to do this. 9, 10, 11. Well, at least I know it. 12, 30, 40. Okay, now I got a bunch. Super, thank you. So guys, you got December rolling in, and don't make excuses for not doing this. If you know all 21, you can take a busload of people, busload of retired people that would drive up to your door. Not one of them would have any desire to work with you. All of them would be totally happy with their advisor. And what would happen to that whole busload? When you're good at the 21, what would happen to that whole busload of people who had no desire to work with you, who all love their guy, they're totally happy with where they're at? What would happen to them? They would convert. Why? Why would they convert? They would convert. Why? Because you would be good at having them spend an hour and a half telling you what? That's right, that they do not trust their advisor. Not us telling them, then telling them. When you get good at this, these guys we've had some of the guys here talking the last month or so, when you do this script right, it's like the client what? When you do the script right, it's like you handed the clients the what? They know all the answers. They're saying exactly what I tell you they're going to say. That's the power of these scripts. Make sense? So we're at the beginning of the month. This is the appropriate time for me to promote. Guys, make 2016 an unbelievable year, and the way you're going to do that is by mastering the 21. If you do that, guess how much money you're going to make next year? As much as you want. Make sense? Coolest. Thanks for staying on the next few minutes. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you on Friday.